Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we're going to take a look at yet another of these Ceratopsian series figures from the beasts of the Mesozoic, as we have a ton included in the very first wave of these figures. And this one, as you could probably tell just looking at those horns right there, but if not, you can see is the Nasutoceratops. It's one that I am very, very excited about. You can see the figure over here, kind of creeping through the window area of the box, but it's just so bright with the lights kind of shining on it. And the glare, it's kind of impossible to really see it. But here on the back, you could see some images of the other figures in the first wave, as well as a sneak peek of the card that is included with some information on the species down here. And then the name right here, the Nasutoceratops. And I love Nasutoceratops. It's a very cool, very interesting ceratopsian, so I'm pretty darn excited to get this open and take a look at it. So let's open it up right now. So just like with every release so far, we have that absolutely awesome card that is included with some gorgeous artwork of the Nasutoceratops, and then of course the tail assembly instructions. But the artwork is just next level included with these Ceratopsian series figures. I am in love with each and every one of these cards I've seen so far. And then on the back we have an image of the figure itself, as well as the name of the species, some information on the species, the Creative Beast Studios logo down there, and then the Beast of the Mesozoic logo up at the top. So really, really awesome card. Very nice, very high quality for sure. Love these cards being included. And then we have our Nasutoceratops right here, and I am extremely impressed with this one, potentially more so than a lot of the others, mostly because when I was looking at this figure initially on the Kickstarter for the Beast of the Mesozoic, I was kind of not that sold on the paint scheme or anything, and because of that I actually had considered at one point not getting the figure. I considered passing it up just because I really wasn't a huge fan of like the brighter yellows and stuff on it. However, now having it here in person, my mind has changed so quickly, and this figure has quickly risen to the top of my potential favorites because something about it here in person, it is just really, really well done. And it's another one of those instances where David Silva manages to take something that's kind of like a brighter, flashier paint scheme, but just hit it with some major doses of realism and the way he has had it painted, and it just generally looks awesome here in person. Very impressed with this one instantly, so let's just go ahead and get a closer look at this beauty right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Nasutoceratops, you can see the beautiful detailing included up here, the absolutely marvelous looking scale detail on the face of this Nasutoceratops. And this is kind of one of the things I was talking about with how nice and realistically done the paint job is, because they've actually given it a really nice green wash all throughout the entire face area of the Nasutoceratops. So all the scale detail here on the face just kind of jumps out at you in really, really nice fashion, and I think that kind of darker green wash really gives it a nice realistic look on something that potentially is a pretty bright color scheme with yellows used, but the way it's been painted with that kind of wash really allows for, I think, a pretty realistic look overall. You can see up here on the top of the Nasutoceratops a nice reddish coloration, which actually sports a little bit of a gloss coat to it. And you can also see they've given it a nice little reddish wash right there beside it as well, just to give a little extra color variation. The nostrils are very nicely sculpted and quite beautifully elaborated with a darker coloration. You can also see that the beak is painted with a nice black, and then they've kind of dry brushed some yellow over top of the tip of the beak as well, just to give some color variation to the beak, which I think was a pretty nice choice. You can see certain areas just having a little extra color, like right here you can see a little bit of white creeping in, and like a beautiful bluish green there right around the eye that borders around the eye. The eye is painted with a yellow, and a very nice black pupil is added. And you can also see some very nice gloss has been added to the eye area as well. The horns up here on the Nasutoceratops are painted with a black, and this is one of the few ceratopsians so far that you can see that there's actually no color variation to the horns at all. It's just the solid black color, and that's it, which is a little shocking to me, honestly. I expected, a little more paint variation to them. However, it does still look really quite nice, and with something like this, it's not like with the others where they kind of like tapered the tips to a darker coloration, because the entire set of horns is already dark, so you don't really need that going on with the figure. So it actually does look really, really good. It's just
A little surprising that there's not really any color variation on the horns, but I guess it doesn't really need it because, again, it does still actually look quite nice with the very dark coloration of the horns and the way that the darker coloration of the horns actually plays off of the lighter coloration of the skin. Coming up into the frill, you can again see how nicely done the paintwork is with that beautiful green wash, bringing out the detailing of each and every scale in really nice fashion. And you can also see a lot of paint variation going on up here on the frill. A really cool design that they've come up with that kind of has like this nice reddish coloration and a white coloration sort of battling back and forth and kind of just striping and designing all over the place. And just like with the rest of the body, it's really nicely applied. The white is actually just kind of that solid white, but you can see with the reddish coloration there are like two different tones of red included, and it seems as though they've given it kind of a nice dry brushing of a darker red over top of that area. You can also see some more of that green right here in the middle of the head of the Nasutoceratops, kind of like a green wash that is showing up quite nicely. The dinosaur also has an articulated jaw, of course, and you can see inside the mouth. Very, very nicely done in there. You can see the tongue. Beautiful, very realistic coloration for the inside of the mouth, I think. You can also see the teeth back there if we look further back in the mouth. You can also see up here, again, really nicely painted. I think the coloration chosen for the inside of the mouth is a really nice realistic one continuously as far as these Beast of the Mesozoic figures go. And you can really see that the Nasutoceratops can open its mouth quite wide. Overall, it's definitely got a pretty good reach with that mouth, which is pretty nice as well. But looking at the neck, you can see the really nice kind of skin folds going on right there in the neck region. The nice dark green picks up here on the back, and there's actually kind of like this nice dark green, and then it transitions to a black up on the top, and that allows for these stripes that come down to really be elaborated and really kind of shine up here on the back because it's a very nice light color playing off of a very nice dark color. And then those light stripes kind of transition to sort of reddish tips, which I think looks really cool as well. Beautiful scale detail as we move back here into the neck also. You can kind of see just generally like some skin folding, skin wrinkling going on. So pretty nice muscle tone here in the front leg as we move down. You can also see kind of like some red creeping through in certain areas. Beautiful foot sculpt as always. Again, you can also pick up on the very nice dry brushing that's been done to the yellow areas of the figure. You can see it nicely displayed there on that foot sculpt. But the nails are painted with a black, given a really nice gloss coat, so they shine quite realistically. You can also see here on the underside that we kind of have like that yellow wash, but a nice white dry brushing that has been put forth over top of the yellow, and it looks really nice. I like the way they've done that as well. Once again, elaborating each and every scale in a beautiful, beautiful way. And then coming back up here into the body, you can kind of see it transition to sort of like a few alternate variations of yellow, and then that nice dark wash that kind of shows up here and there allows for, again, a little bit of realism, I think, with the figure. You can see the hip bone right there. There's a few ridges running down the spinal column as well. Really nicely displayed musculature in the thigh, just like usual. Really beautiful muscular calf as well. Coming down into the rear foot sculpt. The rear foot sculpt also looks really nice, and once again, the nails are painted beautifully and given a very nice gloss coat. And then moving up here into the tail, you can see how nicely done the scale detail is and how it continues. Again, you can see a little bit of like that dry brushing that's been done. Very nice, beautiful curve. Pretty much that same style of curve seems to be included on most of the ceratopsians. It's like that ever so slight curve, but it's really beautiful and really quite elegant. And overall, the sculpt might be one of my favorite sculpts so far from the Beast of the Mesozoic line. I really, really like the sculpt of this figure. Again, really nicely done on this side. There's not really going to be much difference on this side as opposed to what we had just seen on the previous side due to it, again, being an articulated figure that shows up in a neutral pose, and it's up to you to really display it and position it how you would like. But you can see, again, a rough idea of what this side looks like in comparison to the previous side. You can see those stripes continue down the body and then stop right here, and then it turns into just kind of like a solid line that runs along the spinal column. But honestly, it is a gorgeous Nasutoceratops figure and much, much better than I expected it to be in person.
As far as articulation, you have the usual articulation with your ceratopsians. We've got, of course, the articulated jaw, which we've already looked at, and you can see that that jaw, again, opens really wide. And then in the neck region, you have two different areas of articulation. You've got one right here, so that allows for some really nice posability, nice articulation of your ceratopsian and allowing it to turn its head pretty much all over the place. And, of course, look up and down as well, and that's a pretty significant downward positioning of the head, so that works really, really well. You also have articulation in the shoulder, the elbow right there. It's a little stiff because I haven't moved it yet. And then the wrist area, and then the articulation in the midsection, which works really nicely. And then in the hip, which is again a little stiff. You have articulation in the knee, also pretty darn stiff. And then two areas down here. We always have these two areas in the ankle of the dinosaurs that articulate, and then you have the articulation of the tail, and that works really nicely, pretty much allowing you to pose it in any position you would like, and even swivel if you really, really want to. But the articulation, as per usual with this ceratopsian, is just as awesome as everyone so far. As far as a size goes, for a length on our Nasutoceratops, to the tail, you're looking at about the 10.5-inch range, somewhere in that vicinity, or about 27 centimeters. And then for a height, the highest point would be the frill. You were looking at about 4 inches or 10 centimeters for a size comparison. There is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, next to our Nasutoceratops from the Beasts of the Mesozoic line. And you can see again that this figure is not one of the largest ceratopsians we've had so far. It's definitely one of the smaller ceratopsians, actually. You could probably tell that, especially in comparison to the Protoceratops, which was the one we looked at previous to this. You could see that it's significantly smaller in comparison to what that one was next to the Paporex. But to actually show you that, there is the Protoceratops next to the Nasutoceratops. Now, I know at first I was kind of bringing in each ceratopsian to size it up next to the others, but I'm not going to continue to do that. Maybe bring them all in at the end on the final of the first wave reviews, because it's just a lot of ceratopsians to continue to bring in. But you can definitely see next to the Protoceratops that the Nasutoceratops does have a significantly smaller size. So this Beast of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian Series Nasutoceratops is another fantastic figure, as always, from the Beast of the Mesozoic line. There is never going to be a time, I think, at this point in my life that I'm going to say this is not a good figure when it comes to a Beast of the Mesozoic figure, because I don't think David Silva can create something that's not good. I just really don't. And this Nasutoceratops is actually really good proof of that, because when I was, again, initially looking over the Kickstarter, and early on when I hadn't already decided that I was going to try to get the entire collection of these ceratopsians, I had considered which ones I was going to purchase, and I really did want the Nasutoceratops, but the paint scheme wouldn't have been my first choice, and overall, kind of being a brighter coloration, I wasn't all that sold on it, so I was originally going to kind of pass it up and move on to a different ceratopsian. However, I eventually did decide that, of course, I actually wanted to get a hold of all of them and review each and every one for you guys, and I'm really happy I did, because this Nasutoceratops in person is far more appealing than I ever expected it to be, and it's actually really high on my list of which ones I like. And again, it's just a shocking turn of events for me, because I wasn't prepared for just how nice this figure would actually look in person out of the packaging. It is gorgeous beyond belief, and just like always, the Beast of the Mesozoic line, and David Silva specifically, has managed to impress me yet again with this figure. And again, it's a really, really well done figure. Sculpt wise, it is fantastic. Potentially one of, if not my favorite sculpts from the line so far. It is a very nicely detailed figure and a very appealing looking Nasutoceratops overall, capturing pretty much everything you would want in the sculpt of this ceratopsian. But paint-wise as well, I really, really like it. In person, it's way more impressive than the prototype images kind of lead you to believe. I think that the paint job has been applied really nicely, and I love the fact that they've given it the dark green wash underneath so many areas, because it plays off of that yellow so well and just looks extremely cool, but quite realistic overall. And as usual with these ceratopsian figures, they managed to include a ton of different paint applications, so you have different variations of yellow, you have whites, you have reds, two different variations of reds, actually darker and lighter reds. You also have some black and some darker greens, and just lots and lots of paint variation included on the figure. There is never a chance that you're going to get a Beast of the Mesozoic figure that you kind of look at and be like, well, they kind of skimped out on the paint on this one. That's just something I don't think is going to happen. And just like with everyone so far, this Nasutoceratops is a really good example of that. So if you would like to pick this beautiful figure up, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that on the Creative Beast Studio website. So make sure you check the description, go buy this absolutely fantastic Nasutoceratops, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review.
Thanks for watching.